Senator Gillibrand, thank you very much for your time. It's great to see you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. So let's get right into it. Obviously, the jobs bill is chief on everybody's mind these days down in Washington. We're hearing that the Senate Democrats, Harry Reid, is going to make some adjustments in hopes of making it more palatable to your fellow Democrats. Do you agree with the changes he's making?
Well, he's just trying to adjust some various aspects of the bill to make it stronger. And there's great consensus around the base of the bill. One of the things that I'm fighting for most is an infrastructure bank. I really believe that if we can create a vehicle for private investment to invest in larger infrastructure projects like high-speed rail, like rural broadband, like healthcare IT, or a new electric grid, those are the kinds of projects that could be transformational for our state. Another part of the bill that I think is very strong that we'll be retaining is money for other infrastructure, just roads, bridges, sewers. And you know, Liz, after the floods, we have so much damage throughout the Hudson Valley in terms of bridges and roads and basic sewer systems that need upgrades. So we're going to have a lot of work to do in our state, and that can get people back to work right away and allow businesses to grow.
Yeah, it seems to me that the main change that Reid is pushing is a 5% tax on $1 million or more a year. This is a little bit of a tweak from what the president was seeking. It's like the millionaire's tax that we've been talking about here in New York. I think there was some concern on behalf of Senator Schumer and maybe even yourself that there are folks in New York who make $250,000, $300,000, and that's actually not, that's like middle income in New York City, depending on how many kids you had. Was that something you were worried about?
Well, I think that, you know, paying a higher tax rate for higher incomes, having the $1 million be the cutoff is actually a better approach in my view, because you're retaining lower tax rates for small businesses. And small businesses are such an important economic engine for growth in this country. They create 2/3 of all new jobs. I want to keep taxes low for everyone, but if I have to prioritize, I really want to make sure those small businesses have low tax rates.
Yeah, it's also, it seems almost like the tide is turning a little bit. There's this big march in Wall Street today where you have institutional organized labor joining those Occupy Wall Street protesters. What's your view on that? Are you supportive of what they seem to be doing?
Well, what I think it's really about, Liz, is just the anger people are feeling right now. I can tell you, no matter where I travel in the state, people are so frustrated. They're so disillusioned. They're very angry. And the bottom line is our economy needs to be growing. We need to be creating jobs. We need to be able to unleash the entrepreneurialism and innovation that New Yorkers possess. And we need to help small businesses grow. We need to get them access to capital. We need to enhance manufacturing. We need to build infrastructure. All these things are what has to get done. And what people are tired of is they're tired of the bickering in Washington, and what they want to see is people who are fighting for solutions. And a lot of these ideas, Liz, they're not Democratic or Republican ideas. These are just good ideas, plain old good economic ideas. And so I think what it's mostly about is that anger, that frustration that things aren't working for everyone, and they want to change that. So they want to be heard.
Is that something that you support, though? I mean, I know that there are people getting arrested. There are people who, you know, it seems the message is pretty disparate. They're not making any demands, per se, but there are a number of folks who say that they represent, quote, 99% of Americans who are not controlling 40% of the wealth in the country. I mean, it's difficult for elected officials, particularly Democrats, I think, to get on board with that. But I think Charlie Rangel spoke on the floor of the House about it recently. I mean, is it something that you think is appropriate for people to be doing, marching on Wall Street?
Well, at the end of the day, you know, people will channel their anger wherever they choose to. You know, we have the Tea Party candidates who are channeling their anger there. But I can tell you, in my, you know, town hall type events, my round tables, I'm hearing this message over and over and over again. So it's not that the message is uncommon. It's very much felt by everyone across our state. It's just this feeling of dissatisfaction and frustration that things aren't working for them, aren't working for their communities. And it's enormous economic anxiety. And that's why it's my job to go to Washington and fight really hard to get these ideas passed. We need an infrastructure bank. We need to investing in rehabbing our homes and our corporate buildings. I mean, these are the solutions that are out there that can make the difference. But it's just how people feel, and people will choose where they want to express that. But the feeling's real, and it's frankly all over our state.
Does the state have a role, though, too? Because, you know, the millionaire's tax, or taxing rich people to generate revenue, is something that Governor Cuomo has rejected.
Yeah. Well, you know, the governor's done a great job in dealing with enormous budget shortfalls. To close that $10 billion gap was a Herculean effort, and he had to make a lot of tough choices. But that's what both state and federal government has to do. We have to come together. There are lots of places we have to tighten our belts, but it doesn't mean that we can't reach solutions that are bipartisan, that are frankly nonpartisan. We need to get America back to work. We need to make sure New Yorkers have opportunities. We need to increase access to capital. I know the governor's working on a number of ideas for, you know, how to address some of these concerns, and I stand ready to help him. Obviously, we spent a lot of time in the last month dealing with the flooding and disasters all across New York.
Right.
And so we worked hand in glove trying to get that FEMA money into New York to help offset some of the challenges. But this is the job of what government has to do. We have to rise to the challenge of creating a greater atmosphere for small businesses and big businesses to actually create the jobs that gets us back to work.
And just quickly before I let you go, that FEMA money actually is now coming into New York thanks to votes on both sides down in Washington that prevented a government shutdown, correct?
Yes, we are getting the FEMA dollars here. We were able to increase the amount of money put into FEMA, and you know we need to continue to fight for this money. Though what we've even fought for, still we'll need more. So we're going to keep fighting for it. These are the kinds of priorities that really, you know, it's what we do here in Washington. We try to create those priorities, fight for the ones that are most important, and try to bring consensus and bipartisan support behind them.
Okay, we'll be, of course, keeping tabs on all of that. I want to thank you very much, Senator Gillibrand, for your time.
Thanks, Liz.